as I was saying, I'd love to just share a little bit on mindfulness of impermanence. We are cultivating mindfulness, this incredible quality that simply knows what's here, can feel what's here without reactivity, without interfering, um, knowing. It's a kind of experience of love. Have you ever had the experience of being with somebody and they don't try to change or fix you and they really can be with you as you are? Do you know what I mean, everyone? They're just right there. There's not a lot of reactivity. And this knowing mindful awareness can really allow us to be with what's real. And in being with it, as a natural consequence, mindfulness illuminates and reveals the truth, often that we don't want to know, that we're pushing away in the truth of our everyday lives. So, mindfulness of impermanence, and I'll just provide a little bit of a traditional framing for this. In Buddhist practice, there is what's referred to as the marks of existence. And these are these three kind of truths that we're bringing mindfulness to in our lives as a way to awaken, to be more free. And they are often these truths that we don't want to know or it's hard to turn towards. And that's why mindfulness is such a beautiful tool. It allows us to be with it without too much reactivity, without trying to push it away or make it different or fix, to rest in the direct experience of these truths. And so the three, and I'll just frame them, and then one of them, of course, is impermanence, and I'll dive a little bit more deeply into that this morning. But first one is non-self. That can be a little bit confusing or abstract, but it's just the perhaps the truth, and you can feel into this for your own in your own experience, that there's no fixed, lasting self, you know. So I'm not going to go too much into that today. And then there's this truth of dukkha. It's often suffering. It's often translated as being that, but I like the more subtle translation of unsatisfactoriness. If we're all honest, and that's why meditation at first can be a little tricky because we're dropping into the truth of that it's never quite right. Do you guys know what I mean by that? In every moment, it never quite lines up in the way we want it to. Internally, externally, there's always just something. I mean, there are times, there are very rare moments where things align, where external conditions align, and we go, ah. Do you guys know what I mean? It's like, oh, oh. But then it doesn't last, right? So this is the truth of dukkha. The other image that the Buddha used, I guess it's apropos of that time where they didn't have carts, they had cars, they had carts. That the wheel, it's almost like the wheel of a cart. You know how it can have an axle, but it doesn't. It's like a square axle, and it doesn't fit into the wheel very well. So the wheel's always like this. Do you guys know what that feels like? Have you ever had a car problem where it's just? Do you feel that that's the way life is? It's always kind of like, uh. And it's just it's such a poignant image. And a lot of times we don't want to know this. We just keep trying to fix it and trying to make it better. And we somehow think the delusion that it's gonna if we were only better, if we worked hard enough, it would all be good, right? Do you guys know what I mean? We hang on to that delusion that we're going to be able to, if we just worked hard enough, we were better, it's all going to line up. We're going to fix that wheel. It's funny though, huh? Because it's futile. And yet, how many of you noticed when you sat this morning, ooh, did you notice? Hey, ooh, I don't know if I like that. Did anybody notice that? Anything about your direct experience? So we are really being with the truth that way. And then the final mark of existence is this truth of impermanence. That, okay, and you can tell me if I'm correct, but nothing really lasts. Nothing lasts. Boy, do we want it to last. Right, everyone? Don't we want it to? I certainly do. So the realization of the truth of impermanence is central to Buddhist path. And why? Why is it? Especially in alignment with this understanding that it's a path of liberation from suffering, of freedom. So if all phenomena is not lasting or permanent, that all is subject to change. If all is ephemeral, as we say, it's like a dream or a show, a passing show. If we really understand this deeply in a cellular level, if we really know this in our bones, which is true. Do you know that in our body, even our bones, I think it's every 60 days or so that our cells completely replace themselves? So we think this body's lasting, but in the next 60 days, you're going to have a whole different body from a cellular perspective. Where did it go? Right. So if there's nothing truly here, no thing truly here. And if we know from Buddhist teaching, especially the Four Noble Truths, that the cause of our suffering is clinging, if that's the cause, then if we really deeply know impermanence, we let go. We suddenly stop clinging. We suddenly let go. And there's a peace in that. Do you guys know what I mean by that? There's an ease, there's a peace, there's a opening to. There's also a quality of the heart that emerges that's looking around and seeing it's true for everyone. And there's a kind of a compassion. Wow. You know? So we stop clinging to this world of dew, D-E-W. There's less stress. We're more available. We're more present. We land. We become more released into a unified, radically interconnected flow. Perhaps with less feeling of separation. So I'm inspired to teach on this theme because maybe some of you know that how many of you study or know Beth Sternlieb? She's another senior teacher here at Inside LA, very close friend of mine. And her young adult daughter recently, a few weeks ago, died of cancer. And the community has been holding this with her, yeah, just to let that land. It's tragic, yes, the truth of that, the truth of that. And I'm sure everyone here has lost someone that they love and knows the truth of that. And so our community has really been holding Beth. You know, she teaches every Monday through Friday online. You can go to that sit as well. It's absolutely wonderful. I've been substituting while she's taking time away, of course. Also, Angelica, her daughter, I teach at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and she would come to that sit a lot. She was a beautiful practitioner. When she walked into the room, she lit it up. She was a very beautiful being. And I will share just briefly, I don't want to give too much information away, but I will share that she was a deep practitioner, Beth, a deep practitioner, and the beautiful fruit of their practice. She was there with Angelica as she passed, and it was a beautiful death. Now that's hard from an American or Western point of view to grasp. But I think the practice, if we let go before we die, Do you know what I mean, everyone? If we realize the truth before the last breath, we are more free, and the heart is liberated into a much more unified field. We're not in our own way. So I'm really holding Angelica during this what we call Bardo period from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective. Very alive with her. I still feel her a lot. And I'm inspired to read this haiku. It is from the 18th century, a very esteemed haiku poet named Kabatashi Isa, also a Buddhist practitioner. It's a very short haiku, but I'm inspired to read it because he wrote it after the death of his young daughter. And it's so beautiful because it captures so eloquently the truth of impermanence, but also the truth of the pain of loss that is inevitable, right, in this human condition. He says, this world of dew, DEW, right? This world of dew is a world of dew. And yet, that's it. And yet, that's it. Isn't it beautiful? Can't imagine.
Fine.
Whoa, hello. So what I'd like to make sure you mute yourselves, everyone online. So what I'd like to read to you, and probably many of you know this story in this truth, so that
They were good. It was the free.
let's make sure we're muted. Hi there. You sound very alive, which is really great. May it be so. Yeah, be alive. Go for it. This is what it's about. It's about being alive, and it's about really living before you die, before that final breath into the everything, into the everything, into the everything. So I want to share with you this beautiful story. It's very traditional teaching in Buddhist practice, dating back to the Buddha, about impermanence, and it's about Kisa Gotami. This is during the time of the Buddha. I printed up this version, and I really like it. I'm kind of read from it a little bit. It dates back to the city of Shravasti, and she was a young woman who lived in that town, and she had a child. She had a young son, and tragically, he was walking, so maybe 3 or 4 years old, very young, very young. And tragically, as the story goes, something happened. He became ill with something and he died, but he died very suddenly. And for Kisa, she couldn't accept it. She couldn't believe that he had died. She believed that he had just been knocked unconscious and that if she could only find the right thing, he would recover. Has anyone felt that way? I have. I know that feeling. She was unable to take it in, the truth, right? The truth. So it's a very dramatic image. She walked around the village with her dead child in her arms, going from home to home in the street, asking if anyone had anything to help for her child. And she was just so distraught, she couldn't accept the reality of her child's death. Her sorrow and anguish was so deep, she wasn't able to process it. And the townspeople were very aware that she was unable to do this. And they would try to talk to her, but there was no talking to her. But she wouldn't give up. She kept going and searching throughout the neighborhood for the right medicine to revive her child. And finally, she came to the house of one of the elders of the community. This elder was very wise, and he thought to himself or herself, this child is clearly beyond the help of medicine, but the mother is in great need of help. Yeah. No medical doctor can help the child, but there is a great doctor nearby who will know how to help this poor woman. So the elder said to Kisa, he said to her, good woman, go and see the Buddha, the enlightened one, and ask him whether he has medicine for you. So she had heard about the Buddha, and she gets energy around this, and she quickly hurries there, of course, still cradling the dead child, lifeless in her arms. So when she reaches the place where the Buddha was staying, she goes straight up to the Buddha and falls down to his feet, crying out to him, Lord Buddha, I beg you, please give me the medicine I need to wake my child from his sleep. And straight away the Buddha understood Kisa's situation and state of mind. And he said to her so gently, with so much compassion, good woman, I do have some medicine for you. But in order for this medicine to work, you have to obtain a small quantity of mustard seed from at least one house in the city. Oh, yes, Lord Buddha, says Kisa. She's all excited. Certainly I can do that. And she gets up to hurry away because mustard seed at that time was very uh, cheap and available. Almost every household had mustard seed. So she got very excited. But the Buddha said, wait, he said, I'm not finished. He said, good woman, you need to obtain this mustard seed from a house in the city where no one has died, where no one has ever lost a loved one. Kisa couldn't see what difference that would make. She goes, okay, of course. And she accepted the instruction and hurries away to get the mustard seed that would cure her child. So confidently, she knocked at the doors and asked for mustard seed. The occupants could see the state she was in, still clutching her son's body. And they gave her the mustard seed. And she turned away so excited, but then she suddenly remembered the Buddha's instruction. And turning back to the householder, she said, by the way, however, has anyone ever died in this house? Or have you lost a loved one? And the reply came, yes, of course. Our grandmother died a few weeks ago. Kisa was disappointed and gave back the mustard seed. But she just thought, well, I'm just unlucky in this house. And she hurried to the next house. So as you can imagine, going from house to house again after that, in one house, a father had died. At another, it was a daughter. At a third, it was a husband. And after a while, from house to house to house, Kisa stopped even asking for the mustard seed. She just started knocking at the door and directly asking, has anyone died here? Have you lost a loved one? It must have been a bit of a shock to the householders to have someone knock at the door and just ask such a thing. But they could see, they could understand. And they quickly told her, yes, someone has died that we loved, yes. So as the day wore on, the realization that she was and not going to find a house that was untouched by death or loss, it gradually seeped into her mind. And she couldn't help noticing just how many houses had lost a child, even at birth, or a baby. And of course, child mortality was very high then, at that time. So as the daylight faded, Kisa's mind finally began to realize that she wasn't alone or unusual in losing a child. She realized that the universe was not picking on her or singling her out for special punishment. She didn't do anything wrong. She realized that the death of her child didn't mean that the universe had malfunctioned or was broken. This is just what happens. Children sometimes die. Right, everyone? And her tour of the city had shown her that it happened a lot. She was just one among many grieving. So still feeling the pain of loss, of course, but with a heart no longer disturbed by anger or denial, Kisa accepted the death of her son and lovingly carried him to his final journey in the cemetery. And after burying him, she walked calmly through the streets to where the Buddha was staying. She smiled kindly at those from whom she had been demanding answers earlier in the day. But her demeanor was so different that many of them scarcely recognized her now. She finally reached the Buddha again and went up to him and respectfully bowed before him, thanking him for his teaching. The Buddha asked whether she had managed to get the mustard seed, and she replied, "Lord Buddha, I have not." Mustard seed is easy to obtain, but a house untouched by death cannot be found. "Good woman," said the Buddha, "when I said that I had some medicine for you, you may have thought I was promising to cure your son, but indeed, the medicine was not for your son, but it was for you. I can see that the medicine has done its work, and that you can clearly now see the birth and death cannot be avoided, and are part of the reality of existence for each and every person and for all living beings." And then the Buddha replies with this verse that's very famous, and I'll read it to you. It's very beautiful. Such a deep teaching on the truth of impermanence, that we may wake up and live fully and love who we love. Don't wait. Don't hold back, right? He says people are heavily burdened by so many cares. They are driven by concerns about children, wealth, possessions, and reputation. However much they may be attached to life, death comes to all, sweeping everything away, just like a great flood sweeps away a sleeping village. That's very poignant given recent events, is it not? It's beautiful to note, and this is according to the record of this story, we don't really know, but it's beautiful to note that Kisa Gotami asked to join the Buddhist community and was ordained as a nun and joined the community. It's also quite famous that perhaps that eventually she did reach full enlightenment, and that this was a huge part of that for her. And this is beautiful. Her enlightenment is famous. It says, many years later, observing a flame flickering in an oil lamp in her monastic dwelling one evening, noticing how easily it could be blown out by the slightest draught. As she blew out her candle at the end of the day, she had a deep realization in the fragile and impermanent nature of life and became awakened. And became free. This is another beautiful teaching from this story. The Buddha says, this is beautiful. A person who has not understood the nature of reality may live for 100 years, but far more valuable is just a single day, just one day, for a person who has understood the truth of reality, the truth of impermanence. It's a beautiful story, yeah? Find it so deep. And while, as that poem from the haiku, what comes with the truth of impermanence is the truth of loss, the inevitable pain of loss. And yet, in that pain, the heart breaks open so profoundly and becomes free with such beautiful qualities of compassion and love. Radically awake. And I'll end, and then we can open to some questions. And I'll invite you to go into some small groups to share with a reflection, a prompt on this. Because this is really about your life. It's not about death, it's about your life. It's about this day. I want to read, I'm so inspired because of this truth of clinging and how we're really practicing into the realization of the mind stopping the clinging to let go in the way Kisa did. Just letting it really so that we let go. This is a beautiful quote from another, this is a female Buddhist abbess in a Japanese nunnery named Tejitsu. And this is a quote of her enlightenment. And it's beautiful because it points to this clinging, right? So I'll read it to you and I'll just let the words wash over you because it's quite beautiful and simple. She says, or it says, she saw that a rising rose abided and fell away. She saw that knowing this arose, abided, and fell away. Then she knew there was nothing more than this, no ground, nothing to lean on stronger than the cane she held, nothing to lean upon at all, nothing to lean upon at all, and no one leaning, no one leaning. And she opened the clenched fist in her mind and let go and fell into the midst of everything. Isn't that beautiful? So simple. I love that part. Nothing to lean on at all and no one leaning. So feel that, just let that drop into your being. See how it feels. So